I've always used Schwalbe marathon tires for my touring on a Brompton, and they've always served me really well. When you're touring, what you're looking in a tire is puncture resistance, durability, and how reliable they are generally. Now these tires meet all these criteria, and that is probably why they're the most used tires for people bike touring. If there is one thing though that I dread about them, is the fact that they're really hard to replace, and this is especially true on the 16 inches wheel of the Brompton. The reason being is that they have very rigid bits, and there have been times that I wonder how on earth I can possibly fit them on the wheel. So let me show you just a couple of tricks that you can use to make things much easier. Now, of course, you will find that the rear tire is the one that wears out much quicker. To give you an idea, of course, it depends a lot on the kind of roads that you're riding on. But I've used this tire in the trip from the UK to Italy, which was about 2,500 kilometers. And I've also used it on the Sicily trip, which was maybe 800-900 kilometers. And I think this kind of reflects quite well the average mileage that I'm able to get on the marathon tires. I would say about 4,000 kilometers is when you start seeing the thread, wearing down quite a lot. Now this tire I think could still probably go for quite a bit. I mean, you can probably still do 1,000 kilometers on it. But what I like to do is to replace it when it gets to this stage, and then keep this one as a spare when I'm touring. So that's the way that I normally would do. So I wouldn't leave for a next tour with a tire that is already worn out, because it is much more likely that you will get more punctures with it. And it is much easier to just replace a tire when you're home, rather than risking to have to do it on the road when it falls apart, or when you get too many punctures to continue. So the first thing that I would always recommend is also to take on a tour a glove that you can use when you're repairing the bike. I hate to just get my hands all greasy during the ride, because it's very hard to keep clean and to wash them. So I always bring something light like this. They have some a kind of rubber texture where you're holding things so that they don't slip. And you can find them probably in DIY stores or in garden centers. So I normally I just release the tensioner here by just unscrewing this small wheel. And then you can rotate the barrel. And then we get this loose. After we've done that, we're able to remove the little chain just by turning it. Next, with our 15 inches wrench key, we can just turn the bolt here. And again, remove it and just make sure that you keep the spacer together with it. And once the bolt is removed, we're able to remove the derailleur. So you just lift the chain slightly here and you just take it out. Again, with our 15 inches wrench key, to remove the two bolts on either side. Now you might have one of these covers, you just pull on it. This is just a rubber plastic cover. Just keep it on the side. And then we just loosen the opposite side as well. On both sides you have two metal parts with a kind of tooth that sits on the frame and keeps it still. So the easier way to do it, just wiggle the wheel and they will both come out easily. and just keep them on the side. Now we're able to remove the wheel, but before we do so, because there is the brake caliper that wouldn't let you take it out, we need to deflate it, of course. So there we go. As I said, the beads are really quite hard, although they do get a little softer on a used tire. So what you will need is some kind of a good lever. You know, some of them are way too flimsy, I find, and especially on these small wheels, they make the job much harder. If at all you have within reach a Decathlon store, I love this. I think they're B-twin, and they're really, they're not protruding too much here, which means that they're very stiff, and I find that they're really good for taking off and putting the tires back. Now we start to remove the tire, so just put the valve on the opposite side. So you start from the opposite side of the valve, and we just go in with our tire lever, try to get the bead to come out at the beginning, and then you can fix it. They have these parts here which just fix neatly on the spokes, and then just move along. Okay, just a little bit more, and then we'll be able to just completely remove it. Now all we need to do is just slide the lever all the way. And now we're able to remove the tire. So after we remove the tire, it is time to put our new tire in. So we can just insert the inner tube. And one thing which is important to remember is the inner tube should never be deflated completely, because that way it will be easier to be pinched. So do leave just very little air inside it. So we just look for the valve. And we just put the tire in from one side, which is possible without the use of any lever. So there we go, and that's already in. Now just leaving the valve on the opposite side, you just start working both sides in. And what you will find is that it's easy, you know, for like half of it, and then after that it kind of gets harder. The first trick then to make the job a little easier is just to remember that the tire is kind of a V shape, and when we put the two beads inside, it's important that they go down all the way, because that way it creates a bit of slack on the tire. If you do not do that, you know, it's even harder to complete the task. So you do so by just squeezing the center of the two beads and kind of pushing them in. And just work your way around, always leaving the valve open for the moment. So that will be the last part. Now let me just show you the second thing you can do to make things a bit easier. Once you get to the point where it's hard, you know, to fit it in completely, as you see, you know, there's just, you know, 1/3 of the wheel left. What you have to do, if you just keep going like this, what you will find is that as you push the bead on one side in, the other side tends to slip out. So it is important to prevent that from happening, because then it will be much easier. So what you want is to either have a piece of string, a zip tie would also work. I've got these toe straps, leather toe straps, which also work for this. So I will use this now. And you just put it very close to where you've, you put the tire in both sides. So we will work up this way. So we'll just put it in here. And what we want to do, we want just to tie it down, so to ensure that the tire is not slipping out on that side. So it needs to be quite tight. Okay, so that's how I have it in here. So now the only thing that we need to do now is just to move along this side, and we're sure that it won't come out on the other side as we go. So again, keep a little bit pushing down on the side. Okay, and now slowly we start moving towards the valve. Of course, when you get this close, there's nothing wrong in using a little bit the lever to help yourself. So always pay attention, of course, that you're not clipping the inner tube, pinching it. So and the last bit, what you can do, just put the lever inside, but only on the threshold of the rim. And never push it too further in, because then you would easily pinch the inner tube. And then just gently pull it up and it goes in. There we go. So the tire now is in, and as you've seen, it's it takes a little bit of time, but if you just follow these two rules, you will find that it is much easier. Now all that remains is fitting back the wheel. Next we just fit these spacers, and bear in mind that they do have a top and a bottom. Next we are ready to thread in the bolts, both sides. Once we've threaded the two bolts in, we just use again our 15 size wrench key. You don't need to be too firm on this. On one side we had the plastic cover, so we just can put it in. Now we're ready to put back the derailleur. If you've got the bike folded this way, the right way to put it in is, remember this small wheel will just go between these two metal parts and on top of the chain here. So it should just sit in here. So we'll just put it inside, and then just make sure it goes through like this. Now we can just fix the derailleur. If you remember, there was the spacer and there was this bolt. So you just put it in the, not the wider part, but on the thinner part here. Put the spacer and just thread it in. Again, with our 15 size wrench key, we just give it a little turn. No need at all to be too firm, because you could damage the derailleur. So just as far as it's fixed will be fine. Now our derailleur is installed, and the way that you you put it back as it should be, lift the chain here and just slide it on the small wheel, then pick up the longer arm and you just thread it around just like this. Now, in order to show you how the tensioner is adjusted, I'll just show you this way. So what we will do, we will just put the little chain. It will go inside this part here, which is attached to the derailleur, as we've seen. And then, this will be just screwed into the hub until, it won't turn anymore. So when it won't turn anymore, we'll just turn it back so that the chain is free to then attach to the cable to the other side. In order for the gears to be working, what we need to pay attention to is this part here, so where the barrel meets the chain. So this part here. We'll need to put the bike on the second gear of our hub, and then just adjusting the barrel, we just pull on the chain until we see the metal part slowly coming out. And as it comes out, as I say, 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters, that's when we know the adjustment will be right and the 3 gears will all be working. Put the gear on number 3, the hub gear on number 3. This will give you more slack on the cable here. And then you just take this part and just thread it in until you can feel it catches. Okay, now it's catching, and you turn it all the way until it stops. Okay, now it doesn't turn anymore. Then once you get to the top, you just turn it back until the tensioner is on the right direction, you know, to be fitted on the cable. Now you just pick up the barrel. So you will turn the barrel on this thread part here, and then we will block it with a small wheel. Okay, now the barrel is up. Once you found the correct length of your tensioner, that's when you actually, of course, will fix it with a small wheel, and then your gear will work properly.